Hey guys, this is Justin Chung, and I'm here to talk about this week's readings. So, for the first book that we read, Teaching the Taboo, the main idea that I got from that was that as teachers, we found ourselves in an authoritative position, right? And while we want our students to grow and learn, we also must learn to use our position to help students develop their own voices to be heard. Now, what society perceives them is not how we should perceive them. So basically, we need to find creative ways to let them voice their opinions. That's not to say that, let them go crazy and wild and just say, F this and F that and, disrespect each other. We also, as teachers, must provide order as well. We need to guide them to think critically with their voices instead of just letting them go rampant. So teaching is sort of going to like a new country. It's going to be new and it's going to require courage, and we got to be brave about that as we teach the so-called taboo. For the classroom management book, I believe the main idea was to know who your demographics are, right? So you have to plan accordingly. If you're going to be in a Japanese classroom like this one, then you're going to need to know what your students are going to be like and how they act and what the culture is for them. Seating placement is also going to be important for managing your classroom, right? Do you want them to all stare at you, but when you have your back turned to them, right, they're going to fool around and have less focus on the lesson at hand? So it's important to know the seating chart and desk placement. For example, if you have like a sub that comes in and you don't have a seating chart, you just let them sit wherever they want, it's going to be chaos. Also, a seating chart can help you, figure out who sits with who. If there are two kids that are really buddy-buddy and they talk a lot, maybe you need to separate them too. Things like that. It's also important to establish rules and routines, like at the end of class, put your chairs up on the desk, things like that. Establishing rules and routines will help with student management. They might not be accustomed to how you want things at first, so it's going to be a little rough at first, right, for maybe the first few months. But when they get the hang of it, you'll have an easier time managing your students. So it's important to establish these early on. All right. You want to also be able to create relationships with your students, so that's not simply, an authoritative teacher and obedient student kind of thing, but rather that of a mentor and a mentee kind of relationship. So you want to keep your students engaged and focused, right, with interesting content, things that are relevant to them, as well as get feedback from them, what works, what doesn't. You could, for example, have an assignment where they write letters to their previous teachers, right, of what went wrong and what went right. Things like that. So we always want to keep moving forward, going back to the drawing board, seeing what works for you and what doesn't as a teacher. Some people like to be laid back, some people like more strict. Just know that things can always improve, right? And for the last book, what to do when you're in a certain scenario, I believe the main idea was that teaching is going into unknown waters, into dangerous territory. You never know what's going to happen, right? There's going to be dilemmas, right, that you're going to encounter, and we as teachers need to have a good sense of ethics and morals if you want to help them later on. Now, I assume all teachers want to help out their students, pass the class, get a good education, but simply making their D plus into a C minus, will that really help them pass when they go into the next class? But perhaps that student worked really hard for that D plus. Perhaps the previous teacher didn't really establish basics. You're going to face these kinds of problems, and it's going to always be of a moral dilemma, and you will be hurt emotionally, maybe not as physically, but I hope you guys get the point. All we can do is learn from our mistakes and stay committed to our ideals. And as we do that, we must reflect from time to time to grow from any mistakes that we make. We should also share our stories with others, so that way when they come into a similar scenario, they'll be able to know what to do, So as teachers and students, we need to grow together. Because as our students grow, so must we. And that's the end of my talk. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys have a good day.